worst housing crisis ever. The crime rate is up 30%,
Welcome back,
38%,
everybody.
40%.
This is our daily look at question
estimates are through the
periods.
roof.
Stand on
Canadians
guard. All
deserve
the
better.
answers.
They have a choice
The
between a
question
minority
period.
Liberal
Well, maybe
government
some
that's
of
in
them.
coalition
Probably
with
more
the
than you're going to get
NDP.
from the Liberals
But worse still,
and the Trudeau
Quebecers have been
government.
hoodwinked by the Bloc Québécois,
We're
which
just
supports
finishing
the
up
Liberals'
the
wasteful
statements by the
spending
members
and
here.
supports,
Yes,
among
we're
other
rushing
things,
to get
the
on
second
board.
carbon tax. The
But
Bloc Québécois wants it
I'll
to be
be joining you in a
drastically increased.
second, and we will
Canadians have
have
two
the first
choices
question
in the next election.
very shortly from the
They
leader
could be
of the
stuck with
official
this Liberal
opposition,
government
Pierre
again, which is
Poilievre.
kept in power by the
Don't know
Bloc
if
and the
Trudeau's in the
NDP,
House yet. I haven't
or
had
their
a
other
chance to
choice, the
look.
Conservative Party
But
of Canada, which
don't
has a
be
plan
surprised
to
if he's
axe
not.
the tax, build the
Good
houses,
news, though.
fix the
Chrystia
budget,
Freeland will
and
be there,
stop
I
the
bet you
crime.
anything.
The choice is very clear.
So let's see
Canadians
what's
deserve a
happening.
government that will work for them and bring back our national pride. That's common sense, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charles-Le-Moyne.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the last day of Canada's first ever National Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. It is also on this very day, 2 years ago, that I introduced my private member's bill, which became law in June, to establish a national framework for the prevention and treatment of cancers linked to firefighting, and to make every January Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month throughout Canada, bringing increased public awareness to occupational cancers in the fire service, which account for over 85% of all duty-related deaths among Canada's firefighters. It is crucial to promote best practices that can help mitigate the risks.
This public awareness is essential in order to ensure that the men and women who put their health and their safety at risk are regularly screened and receive timely treatment in the event of a cancer diagnosis. Thank you to the firefighters in my riding of Longueuil-Charles-Le-Moyne and to firefighters across Canada for their sacrifice, and know that your health and your well-being are important to us. Thank you.
Oral questions. Questions orales. L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Our priorities are clear. We're going to axe the tax, build homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. On the latest point, the Prime Minister has presenting himself as the great hero when it comes to auto theft. There is a 38% increase in auto thefts since he came into power. The penalties are light, our ports are badly managed. Will he reverse his policies that have led to the crisis in the auto sector instead of having yet another summit? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker.
Well, looks like Trudeau is there.
The Conservative government cut programs to protect civilians, be it auto theft and cutting ports. We are investing to ensure that we can be there to keep Canadians safe and protect Canadians from being victims of crime. We will continue our work and our investments. We will work with partners and we will take action. The Conservative leader is putting forth slogans and easy solutions that aren't real solutions. We will do the necessary work. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. Perhaps the fact that his policies are more costly. It's true, much more costly. And there was less spent for fewer thefts. 2/3 less thefts in Toronto in 2015 when he took power. He's letting car thieves off lightly, and he's not managing federal ports properly. Will he reverse the policies that have led to this crisis? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Everything is being done to fight auto theft. There is a national summit on combating car theft, which is bringing together the various leaders from the different sectors and jurisdictions to address the problem. We are already getting results. Our border services officers have already stopped the theft of 1,600 cars in 2023. We will continue to do the work while the Conservatives are making political attacks.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, our priorities are clear. We're going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Stop the auto theft that is run rampant under this Prime Minister. He's now throwing a cape over his back, claiming that he's the hero on auto theft, but it's actually tripled in Toronto, and it's up by 100% in Montreal after he brought in catch and release and house arrest for car thieves, and after his incompetence allowed our ports to spin out of control and our cars to be exported to overseas crime and terror networks. Why doesn't he reverse his policies instead of another meeting?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a serious situation. Canadians are concerned about this, and the Conservative leader just chooses to whip out his empty slogans and continue to blame everyone while we're getting to work. We're pulling together stakeholders and leaders from across the government to look at what more we can do. We've seen successes. CBSA agents have intercepted over 1,600 stolen cars last year in 2023, but there's more to do. We're going to continue to make the steady work and investments necessary to keep Canadians safe and to keep crime down.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Keep crime down. Crime is way up. Violent crime is up 40% under this Prime Minister. And today he had his ministers hold a big press conference as their solution. And in it, they put out a press release that said, and I quote, in 2022, approximately 9,600 vehicles were stolen in the Toronto area alone, representing a 300% increase since 2015. End quote. Wow. What happened in 2015? I know, he happened, Mr.
He's got him there.
How can we make him unhappen
2015,
and stop the crime?
the day the music died.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in 2015, Stephen Harper presented a budget that had slashed funds for policing, slashed funds for CBSA officers, slashed funding for Veterans Affairs Services, and we were there to clean up the mess, to cut taxes for the wealthiest 1%, lower them for the middle class, to support families, to start moving forward on gun control in real ways while the Conservatives cozy up to the American gun lobbies. We've continued to step up and keep Canadians safe. Let us bring assault weapons back to our streets. We'll keep Canadians safe.
It's pretty pathetic.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Wow, is he ever losing control of himself? Oh my goodness. Screaming and hollering like that. Mr. Speaker,
Oh,
it's
that's a good
his
moment.
press release.
That's a good
It says
moment.
that in Toronto, auto thefts are up 300% since he took office. His solution is to hold a summit. He held a summit on food prices. Food prices went up. He held a summit on housing. Housing costs doubled. How much is crime going to rise after all the bigwigs go to his summit?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has trouble believing that we would actually include real facts in our press release, something he and the Harper government never did for years. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a real challenge around auto theft in this country, and our solution is to roll up our sleeves, pull together.
Well, he loves
across
that.
the country,
Roll up
and
our
get to
sleeves.
solving it. His solution: throw his hands up in the air, blame a raft of political attacks on us, and continue to see that he's not putting forward any real solutions, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Belloy-Chambly. Order, please.
Well, that was a pretty good intro today.
The honourable member for Belloy-Chambly.
Pretty good intro.
Medical
Pretty good
assistance in
beginning.
dying is profoundly marked by progressive policies in Quebec. We are there to admit, all of us, that the hypotheses on which a person who is currently suffering from a mental condition cannot make a serious mental condition cannot make a decision. Other people know that their condition will deteriorate and can make a decision now. So it could already be set out in Quebec that they could be allowed to do this. Will the government consider this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, as my honourable colleague says, The choice of getting medical assistance and dying is an extremely difficult choice. It's a very personal one as well. As a society, as
It's
a
a very
parliament,
sick
it is
one as
our
well, that your
responsibility
government
to
has made
find a
Canada the
balance, an
suicide
adequate
capital of the
balance in
world.
a difficult
What a
situation
pathetic
that
individual.
respects the rights and freedoms of an individual and to protect the most vulnerable. That is why for years we have been studying, assessing, taking
Sound is
measures,
low.
proposing debates, listening to experts, and we will continue to be open to all kinds of suggestions as we continue to work responsibly
Why
together.
is the
The
sound
Honourable
low?
Member for Beloeil-Chambly, I'm asking the Prime Minister to recognize that these are two different situations. That is, people who are already suffering from a mental health condition, which does not allow them to make a decision, and people who are currently in possession of all their full faculties and who can make a decision in advance. I think the Prime Minister could consider it, or does he fear that the religious right will not allow this?
Religious right.
The Right Honourable Prime
That's who
Minister.
opposes euthanasia, you
Mr.
blockhead.
Speaker, we know full well that this is a real issue that my colleague is raising. It is a question that is being asked, along with a number of other difficult questions, and they are being examined. Yes, we will continue to consider advanced directives. We will continue to look at how we can ensure that people have the rights and freedoms that are important to them, while still ensuring that we
Wow,
protect
what a
these people
a
and all
moron.
others who
So
are
your rights
vulnerable
and freedoms to have yourself
in
killed.
unexpected or negative situations.
This guy is
Burnaby
so
South.
Thank you, Mr.
unhinged.
Speaker. The Liberal Member of Parliament for Davenport claims that there is no housing crisis in Toronto. The rest of the Liberal MPs for Toronto would rather fight the City of Toronto than actually deal with the crisis of housing. Here's what frontline workers are saying. Quote, on the ground, we've seen a man recently arrived from Africa die in an encampment while trying to stay warm. So will the Prime Minister listen to his out-of-touch Liberal MPs or to frontline workers trying to save people's lives?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been there for investing in housing across the country, including with hundreds of millions of dollars directly for the City of Toronto to invest in housing, housing affordability, and fighting homelessness. We know there is lots to do, and we're going to keep doing it, whether it's signing housing accelerator agreements across the country, whether it's introducing a suite of new measures to unlock the construction of 600,000 new apartments, whether it's cracking down on short-term rentals to unlock even more apartments, or introducing a mortgage charter to protect homeowners from the stress of elevated interest rates. We are taking
L'Honorable
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. An 83-year-old woman was kicked out of her housing that she has lived in for 30 years. Given the Liberals and Conservatives' housing crisis, she
Hey, you're
doesn't know where
propping up
she's
the
going to
government.
go. The Liberals
Sing.
have
Hey, sing.
resources, the
Who's propping
power
up the Liberal government?
to resolve the
Would it
housing
be you?
crisis. When will the
Don't
Prime
pretend to be in
Minister stop
opposition. Don't pretend to be
picking
in opposition.
real estate
You're a
giants
coalition
instead
leader.
of
This is
women
your
like the one
problem.
I'm speaking about? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are taking concrete action to ensure the construction of hundreds of thousands or millions of housing across the country, along with the municipalities directly and the provinces and Quebec. We are here to ensure a reduction in red tape, the acceleration of permits, improvements in zoning. $4 billion is on the table to deliver housing, and we will continue to do this work in a serious and responsible manner. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister needs a summit to find out about the problem of auto theft.
He needs a psychiatric summit to figure out why he doesn't think so well.
It was his policies that caused the 300% increase in auto theft in Toronto. He's asked for solutions. Well, we have some of those too. Will the Prime Minister agree to reverse his catch and release bail policy for car thieves, end house arrest for those who steal cars, and put an end to his incompetence at the Port of Montreal, from which so many of our vehicles are being shipped to organized crime and terrorist networks abroad?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what's interesting about the Leader of the Opposition is he doesn't actually care about auto
Don't
theft.
answer the
He cares
question,
about making a
Justy.
good political attack on the government because people are facing real challenges. What we are focused on is solving the challenges. What we are focused on is initiatives like we announced today of $121 million to fight auto theft in Ontario. We've been working to bring together stakeholders and leaders across the country to bring forward more positive solutions to build on the 1,600 recovered autos that we prevented from being stolen last year.
I'm going to ask all members once again to please restrain yourselves, to listen to the questions and to listen to
restrain
the
yourself,
answers.
people.
And when you have the floor will be yours. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, he says that he's stopped 1,600 cars from being stolen, but there were 100,000 stolen in 2022, an increase of 34% across the country. You would need a great big meeting to understand the problem. He's the problem. We have solutions that make common sense. And the catch and release bail and house arrest for car thieves and ensure better management at the Port of Montreal to stop the exporting of our cars elsewhere. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, he is accusing people in Quebec of being incompetent. That's a real pattern for the Conservative leader. We are here to work hand in hand with
you're
the
from
municipal
Quebec and you're
leaders,
incompetent?
police chiefs,
That's a good place to
provinces,
start.
in order to resolve this problem. We are here to work in a responsible manner by investing, for example, $121 million to fight auto theft in Ontario, which we announced today. There is work to be done, but it's not using empty slogans and making personal attacks that will solve these challenges for Canadians, but we are doing the work.
The Honourable Leader of the
Now,
Opposition.
what a bag
Monsieur
of
le Président,
wind.
c'est lui.
Mr. Speaker, he is accusing Quebecers of being incompetent, saying that the Port of Montreal is managed by them. It's a federal port, so it's not true. He is the one who's incompetent, and he is the one that has caused this problem. And this is the problem across all the ports in Canada. Because of him, the federal ports are poorly managed, and that's why there's such a high rate of crime. Once again, we have common sense solutions. Will he end the automatic catch and release bail, house arrest for car thieves, and stop the incompetence at the ports that's causing the auto theft crisis that he caused? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I've already responded to the concerns on car theft, but the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about common sense and crime and violence. Why is he listening to the American gun lobby, which wants to bring back assault-style rifles to our streets and to our communities? Each stage of the last 8 years, he's tried to block our gun control measures because he is being controlled by the American gun lobby instead of standing up to protect communities and control guns and demonstrate that he
yes,
really
he's
is
totally
concerned about
controlled by the
Canadian
American
safety and
gun lobby.
security. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Not only
We
is he
can't even own a
not
rifle in this
worth the
country.
cost, he's not worth the crime, and now he's spreading disinformation. Years after he promised he was going to ban these so-called military assault rifles, they're still legal in Canada, and he's paying foreign hunters to get into helicopters and fly around over Vancouver Island to slaughter deer that our hunters would have taken down for free for the meat. When will this Prime Minister stop his policy of targeting lawful Canadians and go after the real criminals that are terrorizing our streets?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The contortions the Leader of the Official Opposition goes through to try and talk about gun control are quite impressive, Mr. Speaker, but Canadians will not be fooled by him. The Order in Council that made assault-style weapons illegal to use,
What a
to
buffoon.
purchase, or to share or sell is still in place. The Conservative Party of Canada has as its official position that it wants to restore the legality of assault-style weapons in this country. We will
Assault-style weapons.
The
Assault-style
Honourable
weapons.
Leader of the Opposition.
Has he been using coke again?
He stumbles and bumbles when he does not know what he's talking about, and he does not know what he's talking about because
Stumbles
he does not
and
care
bumbles
what he's talking
when he's
about.
snorting coke,
He still
too.
has not banned those guns. Years after promising on the election trail that he did, they are still legally in the possession of their owners at this stage, and he says he won't be able to do it until a week after the next election. Meanwhile, he tried to publish 300 pages of hunting rifles that he wanted to ban, blaming First Nations hunters for crime in downtown Toronto. Why does he want to go after, why does he want to protect turkeys from hunters instead of Canadians from criminals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as of a number of years ago, it is illegal to buy, sell, or use or bequeath military-style or assault-style weapons in this country. We did that. We banned over 1,600
He doesn't even know what that
models
is.
of assault-style weapons. The Conservative Party wants to make those assault-style weapons legal again. And everything they do is focused on misinformation and disinformation, of bringing in hunters who are not targeted by these measures to try and justify their anchoring on the NRA.
What the hell is he
The
talking
Honourable
about
Leader of
today?
the Opposition.
The
We're stumbling
NRA.
and bumbling, Mr. Speaker. The guns he talked about are not banned. And he says they will not be banned until 1 week after the next election because he cannot figure out how to ban them years after he announced it. Meanwhile, he's spending billions of dollars going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested people who've proven that they are statistically the least likely to commit crime. And what has been the consequence? In 8 years, we've had a 100% increase in criminal shootings. Why does he always go after the good guys instead of putting the bad guys in jail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in May of 2020, we rendered it illegal to buy or sell or use or bequeath 1,600 different models of assault-style weapons in this country. That is still the case, Mr. Speaker. In the coming year, we will be bringing in an amnesty legacy program. We are extending the amnesty.
Boy, is he off his game today, and he's never very good at the game to begin with.
When he wants to bring assault-style weapons back to Canadians.
The honourable member for
Pathetic to have a man that unintelligible
my neighbor comes
leading a country.
to my house and he says, I want to
Of course,
put a
this
heat
guy is
pump
a
in. It's going to
half-wit,
cost
too.
$1,000 and I'll get it to you tomorrow. The next day, my neighbor comes and he said, can I have the $1,000 back? And I say, I won't give it back to you. Perhaps I'll give you a little bit of it. And that's what's happening in immigration. Quebec is being told, pay the bill for the asylum seekers. We'll pay you later. Ottawa is saying,
Well, I guess maybe
now
more
I'm not gonna
Quebecers
pay
should
you
seek
back.
MAID.
Perhaps just
That
a
seems to
little
be
bit.
your solution,
Can the
blockhead.
Prime Minister recognize his debt and commit to paying it back to Quebec?
Or maybe the
The Right
religious right
Honourable Prime
like
Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning, we
But of
have
course, the bloc
recognized
is
the
propping
extent
up
to which
this
Quebec and Quebecers have
fool. So
borne a heavy burden with regard to the illegal arrivals at Roxham Road in particular. And we have resolved that issue with the Americans and airports. We are here to help. We are working hand in hand with the Quebec government. We are discussing with that government how we can support them best. We have seen their request for funding. We are working with them because we recognize that, yes, Quebecers are bearing the burden and we will be there to help them. The Honourable Leader of the Bloc Québécois. Well, the only hand that there is here is the Minister of Immigrations. Well, they commit in an election year, letting Quebecers believe or being asked the question whether his word means anything, if he's reliable, if he's worthy of confidence, or is it that we can't believe him when he says something? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, At each step of the way, we are here to work respectfully with the provinces and territories, with Canadians and the governments across the country. It's true that sometimes there are differences of opinions and perspectives, but at each stage, we are working respectfully and keeping our word. And we are focusing on what is in the interest of the people across this country, and we will continue to do that. Yes, we can be a reliable partner, and we have shown it quite often, and we will always be. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Prime Minister has hit Canadian farmers with a carbon tax that drives up food
Good.
prices
Get back
at
to
the
the carbon
grocery
tax.
store. Food prices, they're rising again only months after he promised they would come down. I asked him late last year if he would talk to the Medeiros farm about their rising carbon tax bill. They just got their bill for December, and it is $21,000 in carbon taxes alone. I ask now, as I asked back then, how exactly will the Medeiros family pay this bill when it quadruples to over $80,000 a year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's interesting that the Conservative leader is asking the government to help out the Medeiros family farm now, because back in 2014, when the Medeiros fan came to him in government, asked him for some support as they were trying to make investments, trying to continue to move forward, he told them that they needed to stand on their own 2 feet. That's what he told that farm. Mr. Speaker, we are there to support farmers right across the country with $1.5 billion over the past few years in investments, in supports. We're going to continue to be there for farmers as they fight climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually, when the Medeiros family asked for me for help, I went to Enbridge and helped them get lower cost natural gas to power their operation, Mr. Speaker. That's the real story. So instead of reading the disinformation from the kids in short pants over in PMO, why doesn't he deal with the thing that's really hurting that family right now? A $21,000 monthly carbon tax bill that is passed on to the trucker who ships the food
$21,000 a
and
month.
the grocer who sells the food.
Now,
so once again, how much will Canadians have to pay in higher food prices when he quadruples the carbon tax?
yeah, I know this Medeiros farm owner. So this is very interesting.
Prime Minister.
Speaker, back in 2014, he told that farm family to stand on their own 2 feet. We, Mr. Speaker, know what is
What
making
is he
farmers
talking
vulnerable
about?
across this country. Do you know what it is, Mr. Speaker? It's climate change. It's the fact
Oh, of
that
course,
the
it's
change in
climate change.
causes droughts, floods, and
Dredge.
fires.
Dredge and fires.
Droughts, floods, and fires end up hurting crops, end up hurting growers. That's why we're stepping up on fighting climate change. Farmers across this
Justin,
country
are you
know how
stoned again
important it is
today?
to sustain
Come on,
and protect
let's
our
admit
land.
it.
That's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
Let's admit it, Justin. You've been into the coat.
The
Come
Honourable
on.
Leader of the Opposition.
He mentions drugs. That's another crisis that he has caused, Mr. Speaker. But back
Yes,
to the cost of
he's taking
food,
them.
heat, and groceries. This Prime Minister plans to raise the carbon tax again on April 1st. Another hike to the gas, the heat, the grocery bills. Another hit to the Nova
It's gotta
Scotia
be climate
families who
change.
can't afford to pay their utility bills. And another hit to working class families while he jets around the world carbon tax free. If he can't have the common sense to axe the tax, will at least cancel his plan to hike the tax on April 1st.
No, at least cancel it. Cancel your plans to run again, please.
The Leader of the Opposition is proposing to cut for Canadians the carbon rebate, Mr. Speaker. The checks that Canadians get in price on pollution is in place that they are relying on to enable them to both fight climate change and support their families.
yeah,
We
yeah,
are gonna
that's gonna
continue
get us
to
through
be
the
here
year.
to fight climate change and put more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. When he talks about cutting climate action, he's also talking about cutting those checks that arrive in families' bank accounts 4 times a year.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What
the
a
Parliamentary
clown.
Budget Office, sir, the average 60% of Canadians are paying more in his carbon tax than they get back in rebates. And now we learn
of course
that
they are.
40% of Nova
Any
Scotia
idiot
households
can
are
figure that
struggling to
out.
pay their electricity bills. The carbon tax, of course, applies on the share of electricity that is generated through traditional hydrocarbons and other fossil fuels, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is going to hit Canadians with yet another tax hike on April the 1st. Will he, if he
April
can't
Fool's
summon the
Day.
common sense to axe the tax, will he at least cap the tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are fighting climate change and creating a stronger economy at the same time as we ensure affordability for Canadians. Those carbon rebate checks that go right across
You're
the
not
country in
fighting
areas
any
where the
climate
federal
change.
price applies help out 8 out of 10 families with more money than they pay in the price on pollution.
Lies.
We will continue
Liar.
to be there to both invest in families, to support them, while the Conservative leader proposes to cut
You're a
rebate checks to
liar,
Canadians.
Justin.
We're going to keep doing it while we fight
You
climate
know
change.
you're lying because you're not
The honourable
fighting
member from
any
Burnaby
climate
South.
change.
Millions of Gazans rely
Oh,
on
fuck.
UNRWA for food,
And this
water,
guy is
and
just a
shelter. People
waste
are
of
starving.
space.
Children are eating grass.
I'm
just
here to
survive.
say I support
Yes,
the Trudeau
serious
government,
allegations
and my name is
need to be
Jagmeet Singh.
investigated and prosecuted. No, children should not pay for this. Why is this Prime Minister fueling this war with Canadian arms and punishing Palestinian children who did not commit a crime?
Who the hell even knows
The
what
Right
he's
Honourable
talking
Prime
about?
Minister.
We are, of course, deeply concerned with the devastating scale of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. We recognize UNRWA's essential role under dangerous conditions in providing life-saving assistance. So we will work with the agency and other donors to support the investigation into the serious allegations against
Well,
its
read
staff.
your-
But
read
let
your
me
script,
be
Justin.
extremely clear. Our determination to provide relief to Palestinian civilians
Somebody
has not
slipped the
changed,
script
and our
to
work
him
with our
just
partners
before
is
question
constant.
period.
We're looking at ways
This is
to
obviously
continue
the
to
first
provide
time you read it.
additional support to those desperately in need, in addition to the $40 million we just announced yesterday.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby
Oh,
South.
the guy's a joke.
The Prime Minister knows well that no other group can do this work. That's right. I'm talking about Halifax. Halifax has the highest rate of poverty in Canada. 1 in 5 children lives in poverty. Only once has the Liberal MP for
Halifax?
Halifax raised the issue of skyrocketing food prices in this House. How out of touch is that? That's the problem with the Liberals. They pretend that everything is fine if everything's fine with their rich CEO friends. So when will the Prime Minister stop working for Galen Weston and start working for Haligonians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are working closely with the Competition Bureau. We're making sure we're passing legislation that strengthens its ability to go after the large grocery chains in this country that are making record profits while Canadians are struggling with food prices. We will work with communities. We will work with individuals. We will work with the Competition Bureau to ensure that that actually happens. We're continuing to be there for Canadians with initiatives like dental care, like increasing the Canada Child Benefit, like cutting child care costs in half across the country. We will continue to be there for people in Halifax and Brighton.
The Honourable Member from Etobicoke Centre.
That's pretty
Mr. Speaker,
pathetic.
my question is to the Prime Minister on our support for Ukraine. Ensuring Ukraine's victory is vital to Canada's security. Ukraine
Absolutely
must win,
not.
otherwise Europe,
Nothing
the US,
to do
and
with
Canada
Canada's
will be
security.
next in defending ourselves against Russia's aggression. So every Ukrainian fighting today is one less Canadian who will have to fight in the future. Every dollar we spend today is millions of dollars less that we will have to spend in the future. We understand this, but Conservatives continue to vote against support for Ukraine, against support
What
for
a
Canada's national
goddamn
security.
idiot.
And the Prime Minister assure Canadians that this government will
Keep
stand
giving
with the Ukrainian
billions
people
to Ukraine.
until we win, until we all win.
This half-witted
Honourable
bozo is
Prime
basically
Minister.
just said he wants a war with Russia.
Etobicoke Centre is right. before the holidays, Canadians all witnessed the leader of the opposition forcing his caucus to turn their back on Ukraine. They turned their backs on fundamental Canadian principles and bowed down to the pro-Russian narrative. I know the leader won't change his mind, but Ukrainian Canadians across the prairies are hoping that at least some brave Conservative MPs will do the right thing and vote their conscience and their principles.
Give billions
Let
to
everyone
Ukraine.
in this house who stands with Ukraine stand up and be counted.
No, that's pathetic.
I know it's.
You want to give some more billions to Ukraine? Stand up with Justin Boyd.
But I'm going to ask members, please let us restrain ourselves so that we can hear the questions and we can hear the answers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what this Prime Minister has is a pro-Russia energy policy that forces the Europeans to buy their energy from Russia.
Don't bother
denying
going there.
Canadians the ability to sell our
Somebody in the Conservative Party should have the balls to say that the war is lost and we should stop giving Ukraine billions.
To Putin so he can pump his gas and power his landmines. Why doesn't he stop using Ukraine as a political tool and actually do something to stand up and help win the war?
The war is lost, and we know that too.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Volodymyr Zelensky came to this house and asked all of us
and watch
to
the
support,
Nazi.
Ukraine
To see a
in
Nazi in the
freedom
parliamentary
and
gap.
its economic independence.
Do you remember that
Volodymyr
day,
Zelensky
Justin?
asked us to support a renegotiation and a renewal of the Canada-Ukraine free trade deal. In this house, everyone except Conservative MPs stood up to support Vladimir Zelensky.
Vladimir.
The Prime Minister has 10 seconds left on the clock. But I'm going to...
That's okay. He doesn't need to run it out.
I'm going to ask all members, I'm going to ask in particular the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to allow the answer to be heard so that, because it's not only important for all of us and for Canadians to hear that, but it's important for members, especially members who require translation.
It's important for you to resign as Speaker.
Heckling.
That would be very nice,
So let
too.
us make sure that we have an opportunity to hear clearly the questions and the...
You have to laugh at Trudeau having the gall to mention Zelensky's speech in the House of Commons because he invited a Nazi.
Their MPs to please stand up for Ukraine. Will they do that, Mr. Speaker, in the upcoming Ukraine free trade vote?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, on this, like everything else, he is a fake and he is a phony. Let's go for the fact. Fake and he's a phony.
He is what? I have to read here. He is a phony. Oh, that goddamn speaker shut the sound off again. He hates the heckling. Now, you have to laugh at these idiots on both sides of the house who can't see what's going on in Ukraine, that we're getting closer to a nuclear war with Russia, that they are spending all of the money that we're giving them on their own means and need, and supposedly they are stealing the money.
Well-experienced man,
and we can't keep this damn war going any longer.
I would caution him to
How
avoid
stupid
using,
are all of these
language
MPs?
like that could cause disruption and could be interpreted differently.
Oh, what did he say? Half-witted speaker?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
His carbon tax deal does not distract from the fact that he announced $400 million in surface-to-air equipment that he has still not delivered. Right. What he did deliver is detonators to Putin so that Putin can put them in landmines and blow up Ukrainians. He delivered a turbine that was refurbished in Montreal so that Putin could put it in his pipelines and pump gas and make money off Europe that we should be bringing home to this country? Why is it that he always stands up for the dirty dictators like Putin instead of the paychecks for our people?
They've got to stop playing both sides of the fence on this. This is really not going to work. When are they going to admit that this war is over and we should stop spending billions on a corrupt Ukrainian president, on a corrupt Ukrainian administration, on a country where everybody's leaving? It is ridiculous to even suggest Ukraine has a hope in hell of winning this war. And Ukraine has no business joining NATO.
Mr. Speaker, when the leader of the opposition refers to Ukraine as some faraway foreign land, when he continues to insist that all of his MPs, including Ukrainian Canadian MPs, vote against a free trade agreement that Volodymyr Zelensky is asking us to vote for to support Ukraine, he can't hide behind the kind of misinformation and disinformation that he regularly peddles in. It's very simple, Mr. Speaker. Will the members of
the guy who sells heat pumps talks about disinformation? This is the moron who's selling heat pumps on his YouTube channel and pretending he'll install one for you. I see all of the comments today from people saying no to Ukraine, stop the corruption, stop spending billions. Ukraine is corrupt. Yes, we all know that, don't we? It is plain as day what is going on here. But this farce continues, and the Conservatives are as guilty as the Liberals, as the NDP, they're all in this together on this. They're all being globalist on Ukraine. And we've got to call them all up. I'm in nobody's pocket. I'm not going to say, good, Pierre, you're right on this. He's wrong on this. And he's playing the game because he thinks his vote's in it. And I am sick of being prostrate to this corrupt regime in Ukraine and this clown Zelensky, who thinks he's Winston Churchill, but he's actually a Harpo Marx.
Associating members with governments that we do find in this House to be disreputable, if not odious. So I'm just looking for all of us to make sure that we.
You are the odious guy who goes to the U.S. and talks about all your liberal friends.
I will ask the honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's to please come and speak to me at the chair, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss this. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he could not point to a single thing that I said that was untrue because it is all factual. It is a fact that we already have an excellent trade agreement with Ukraine, that it does not include a carbon tax, and that there is no need for a carbon tax to be in any free trade agreement. In fact, there never has been a need for a carbon tax in any other free trade agreement in the history.
Here.
But while he remembered a carbon tax, he forgot to include in the deal a ban on him sending detonators and turbines over to Putin. Why is it that he's so determined to allow Putin to acquire weapons and money rather than having a real free trade deal with Ukraine?
Stop with the detonators to Putin. This is the time and question where they can say, who loves Ukraine more? Who loves the corrupt regime more?
Correct the record from him having called Ukraine a faraway foreign land.
It's a faraway corrupt foreign land. That would be better to have said that.
At the very least, to vote in favor of the renewal of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement coming up for a vote in the coming days. It is an opportunity for those who choose to stand with Ukraine to stand with Ukraine in this House and be counted. Why is he muzzling his Ukrainian Canadian MPs?
Thank you for all the comments today, by the way. Nice to see the dialogue going and the discourse continuing.
100% united in our support of Ukraine and in our opposition to the carbon tax.
Well, big bloody deal.
this is what
You can.
he divides. He wants to distract from the fact that he doubled housing costs, caused 30 homeless encampments in Halifax, caused shootings to go up by 100%, drug overdoses up by 300%. It is no wonder that he would want to use fear and falsehoods to distract from his many failures, and that is exactly what he is doing. Why won't he finally unite this country instead of trying to divide and conquer?
He's dividing and conquering for the WEF. That's what Trudeau's
This
agenda
House
is.
used to be united in its support of Ukraine and its support of Volodymyr Zelensky. And yet now we see.
What is there?
Please
Actually, we're not seeing
ask
any
the Prime Minister to start up
any
again and ask all
division on
members,
this.
please,
They're
to
all
listen
in
to the
lockstep
response without
to
interruption,
give your money
so that we
to
can have
Zelensky.
an orderly House.
Every time Zelensky
Prime
puts his
Minister
dirty
from
hand
the-
out for
from the
money,
top.
Trudeau's there
Speaker,
to
this
fill it.
House used to be united in its unequivocal support for Ukraine, and then the leader of the opposition disparagingly referred to Ukraine as a faraway foreign land, something for which he has not yet apologized, and has demanded that all his MPs, including Prairie MPs who have strong Ukrainian Canadian populations, vote against a free trade deal that Volodymyr Zelensky has deliberately and directly asked Canadians to support. When will he stand up for Ukraine?
I think they've all stood up, Justin.
The honourable member for Drummond. Let's go back, if you will, to the committee appearance of CBC Radio Canada's CEO, Catherine Tate. Sorry, I'm just going to ask the honourable member to start again because his microphone was not loud enough for the speaker to hear them or hear their question. So the honourable member for Drummond.
Catherine Tate's another waste of space, by the way. If you don't know who that is,
Let's go back, if you will, to the committee.
She's the one who said we have to give Christmas bonuses to the CBC execs.
CBC Radio
because they're
Canada's
so
CEO yesterday.
important.
Nothing in her testimony
doing
yesterday
such a great
reassured
job.
anyone of
That's
her
why the
vision for
station is
French
losing
language,
money.
news and culture. She's maintaining the
Hand over fist.
600 job cuts, which are disproportionately detrimental to the French-speaking community.
Yes,
and yet,
of course, it's going to
this
hit
morning in a
the
press
core
scrum, the
block
government opened
harder
the
than
door to
anybody
additional
else.
financial support for Radio Canada. Will the Prime Minister commit to making any additional assistance to Radio Canada hinge on cancelling the job cuts? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker,
unload the CBC.
Time of
Unload
misinformation
the
and
CBC.
disinformation and the transformation of our media and digital era, we need CBC Radio Canada to be strong, to protect our culture, to
It's
protect
over for CBC.
our democracy, and to tell our stories from one
and
end
to
of the
tell
country
the news
to
the way
another.
I want it
We'll
told.
always be here to defend CBC Radio Canada, and we are going to
What a
seek to
crock.
make necessary investments so this can continue.
We need the state
fulfill
broadcaster
their
to tell the
mandate
news like the Liberal Party
inform
said.
and to strengthen democracy here
You're
in Canada.
a joke. You're a clown.
Member for Drummond.
You're a
Perfect.
circus master.
The Bloc will support the Prime Minister if he offers assistance to Radio Canada, but which must be conditional on keeping jobs. But Radio Canada is the only one crying foul. All electronic news media are demanding the same support like our newspapers. We've seen huge job cuts at Bell and TVA.
Yes,
Weekly
more
publications are
government's
losing their
money because they
distribution
can't survive
channels,
on
not to
their own,
mention the news
so they can
blackout
be
at
in the
Meta.
pocket of the government.
Will the Prime
The
Minister
Bloc
give
is
all
as-
news
the
media
Bloc
the
is as
same
vacuous
consideration
on this
he's
policy as
given
anybody.
to
Just another
CBC Radio
Bloc guy.
Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, supporting journalists
More money to
and
the
local
CBC?
media is very important for this government, particularly at this time that is challenging. This is why we put forth C-18, which will help our journalists at all levels to continue operating. We'll be here.
It'll
to
help them to tell the news the
support
way you
free and
want it,
independent
because you
press
want them in your
that is
pocket. It's
professional.
called
We know there's a
buying
lot
the
of work to
media.
be done still at this time of uncertainty, and we will be here to work with all parties who want to protect journalism, unlike the Conservatives. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled since he promised to lower it. But there is good news. Rent is down for the 8th consecutive month. in the United States. Meanwhile, it has more than doubled under this prime minister. It's up 9% in the last year alone. Can the prime minister explain why is rent going down in the States while it skyrockets under his leadership here at home?
Very honourable Prime Minister.
He doesn't add very well, so that might not be a fair question.
Opposition another opportunity to apologize for referring to Ukraine as disparagingly as a faraway foreign land.
Good answer,
The
Justin.
honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the question
Are
was
you
about
living in the
rent
same universe?
Canada. Rent prices have doubled
in Canada.
after 8 years of this
Can
prime
we
minister.
talk
They
about
have
problems
tripled
in Canada?
his home city of Montreal. And now, according to the home builders of Canada, they expect that construction numbers will actually plummet this year relative to the prior years. They say that this will lead to higher prices, and they say we require, quote, policy changes to reverse it. Will the Prime Minister finally accept a common sense plan to build the homes so Canadians can afford the rent?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I didn't hear an apology to Ukrainians. I encourage him to
I
do
hope
that.
you don't
People are
either,
waiting
buffoon.
for it. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, I can remind this House that we have signed dozens of
An
housing
apology.
accelerator fund agreements across the country that are leading to the construction of hundreds of thousands of new homes in the coming years. We've eliminated GST off of purpose-built rental apartments. We're moving forward on an interest-free savings account for first-time homebuyers. But again, I encourage the Leader of the Opposition to apologize for referring to Ukraine as some faraway foreign land.
What a clown.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's why Zelensky and he get along so well. They're
What I
both
said earlier,
circus
he's not
clowns.
interested in Ukraine. When I asked about rental prices, he started spreading disinformation about Ukraine. He couldn't care less about the war effort over there. He only cares about distracting from his failures at home. L'un de ses échecs.
Well,
One of his
that is true.
failures is the tripling of rents in Montreal. And the Builders Association has said that this year will be one of the worst. Why, Mr. Speaker, are rents plummeting in the U.S. when they're skyrocketing here in Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
This House, for well over 150 years, has been here to recognize the debates and follow what people have been doing. And if he is suggesting that Hansard, the official record of this House in which he said Ukraine is a faraway foreign land, is somehow misinformation or disinformation, we should come right out and say so.
In terms of housing,
Talk about
we continue
getting
to invest
totally
across the
obsessed
country,
with one
including
issue.
in Quebec.
Trudeau can only talk about
Quebec is
climate change in
doubling
Ukraine.
the
Two
900 million
distractions.
we put
That's
forth
all
for
they are.
housing to help housing creation. The honourable member for Alfred Paulin. Mr. Speaker, affordability is a major concern for all Canadians.
Oh, here comes your softball.
To support them and ensure that help is available, the Minister of Finance I would ask the member to start his question again, please. Mr. Speaker, affordability is a major concern for all Canadians. To support them and ensure that help is available, the Minister of Finance presented the fall economic statement. Can the Prime Minister remind the House of the important measures contained in the fall economic statement and why it must be passed quickly by this House?
Don't you hate those softball questions? They're just,
The Right Honourable
they're
Prime
just
Minister.
so solicitous.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the member for Alfred Paulin for his question. The Leader of the Opposition spends a lot of time talking about affordability, but we haven't seen any sign of a proposal. And the Conservative Leader, if he really wants to help Canadians, he can vote in favour of the fall economic statement, which deletes GST on psychotherapy and on co-op construction and creates EI insurance for adoption. Or he could help Canadians by voting in favor of the economic statement, but he continues to focus on cuts and austerity. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, the reality is what Canadians are already living through, because Rents have doubled across Canada. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, he promised to reduce costs, but he has increased bureaucracy. According to the Builders Association yesterday, the record
people are asking about the
drop in morale
petitions
with
come after
builders
question period.
means that construction starts will stop,
And
rather slow
how
down.
do I
The
stand
problem
it?
is getting worse year after year.
Because if we
Will
don't
the Prime
watch
Minister
it,
finally accept our
they will
common sense
completely take
plan
over our
to
lives.
cut
And
red
that's what
tape
they
to
want to do.
increase construction starts? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' plan is eliminating dental care for Canadians. Dental care that has already helped 400,000 children, and now 400,000 seniors are also signed up for this. They campaigned against
Where does he come up with these numbers?
daycare
He just pulls them out of the air. Like
to
children with
cut
no
the
teeth
costs in half.
and
They are voting
and
against
the
our
very
measures
old
to help
with
Canadians
dentures. Yeah.
concretely. He's offering cuts and austerity, but he won't offer solutions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Rent, and instead he turned and made false attacks against me. Apparently, I'm living rent-free in his head. Here's the reality. Rent is going down in the States while it's coming
If you're
up
living in
Canada.
Trudeau's head,
Housing
there's not
costs
much
have risen
room.
40% faster than
Actually,
the incomes of Canadians, the worst record in the G7, and the second worst in the OECD. If the Prime Minister's plan were really working, why is it that housing costs have doubled and our housing is becoming less affordable than almost any developed country in the world?
no problem for Justin.
Leave aside the question
He
of
can
where
always
exactly he's
vacation in
living
Jamaica.
rent-free, and focus on the supports we're giving to Canadians. We are continuing to invest in meaningful ways in partnership with municipalities, with unions and building trades, with provinces across the country to solve this housing crisis that Canadians are feeling so acutely. Whether it's cutting the GST from purpose-built rental, whether it's moving forward with a tax-free savings account for first-time
Whether
homebuyers,
it's staying
whether
on
it's putting
vacation in
$4
Jamaica
billion
with my
in the
friends
pockets
from
of
the Trudeau
municipalities
Foundation.
across the country to increase density, to cut red tape, we are taking action on housing.
The Honourable Leader of the
That's the only
Opposition.
housing Justin understands.
Yes, he does a lot to increase housing costs. Rents have doubled. Mortgage has doubled. According to the news, the rental market says that rents continue to skyrocket in Quebec. At the same time, that construction starts are dropping considerably. Can the PM finally stop building bureaucracy so we can finally start building homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The housing plan from the Conservative leader is mostly treating Quebec officials like they're incompetent. We are working with Quebec officials, with the provinces and the municipalities
the
to
guy
invest.
who
And I'd like to
defines
underscore that the
incompetent.
900,000 we put forward to accelerate housing construction in Quebec was doubled by the Quebec government to ensure that municipalities can do even more to tackle this housing crisis. That's a concrete plan, not these insults. The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Yesterday, the MP for Dufferin-Caledon applauded the housing minister for moving quickly on his file. And I quote, he said, new programs, new initiatives, and new plans, despite the fact that his own leader has obstructed every measure we've brought forward to support Canadians. Can the Prime Minister stand in support of the MP for Dufferin-Caledon and update Canadians on
Where
what
do they
new
find this
housing
broad?
programs, initiatives, and plans this government
My
has
God,
announced
what
this
a-
week?
Listen to her rant and rave and with a softball question. This is so funny.
Advocacy from the member for Halifax West, we announced a housing accelerator agreement of nearly $80 million in Halifax to unlock 9,000 new homes. While the leader of the opposition is picking fights with municipalities, we're working directly with them to reduce red tape and revolutionize the way homes get built in cities across the country. On this side, we're we're bringing forward real solutions to address housing affordability while he spends his time attacking and insulting.
You invite nothing more and nothing less.
The honourable member from Nunavut.
Nunavut athletes who earned their spot at the Arctic Winter Games in Alaska risk missing out because in Nunavut, Service Canada does not process passports. My office was helping until this government put even up more barriers. Families are now forced to pay thousands of dollars to fly down south to get their passports expedited or not compete at all. Can the minister ensure Nunavut has access to the same services as the rest of Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For the question. I know it's an important one for families across Nunavut, and that's why we're committed to working to resolve this issue. I was just up in Nunavut for a historic announcement around devolution a few weeks ago, working directly with the Premier to demonstrate how we build a stronger future together. This is an issue that I know the Minister is engaged with. We will look for solutions. We want to make sure that our young Nunavut athletes show what they're capable of at the Arctic Winter Games. Go Canada, go. Go Nunavut, go.
Well, Trudeau, go.
The honourable member from Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in 2022, Canada sold more than $20 million of military equipment to Israel. Last week, the ICJ ordered Israel to take steps to prevent acts of genocide. As a signatory to the Genocide Convention, Canada is bound by this decision. Our own Export and Import Permits Act also forbids these sales if there's a substantial risk they could be used to violate international law. Given Canada supports the ICJ, will this government put in place an embargo on military exports to Israel?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has one of the
Justy boys
strongest
getting up
export
for
control
everything today.
regimes in the world that puts human rights and protection of human rights at the center of all our decision making. It has always been the case, and we have been consistent in making sure that we are responsible in the way we do that. We will continue to be so.
And this brings to an end question period.
Well,
it being 3:20, the House will now
being
proceed to the taking
3:20.
of deferred recorded divisions.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. And yeah, thank you so much for watching today. This was illuminating, to say the least. It always is. The fact that we've got a Liberal government that is completely obsessed with carbon taxes. They don't call them that. They call a price on pollution. But they're totally obsessed with climate change. They're totally obsessed with Ukraine. And they are not in the least concerned about making your lives easier. I see some of the comments here about the price, the actual price of products. And yet we're being fed this BS that the inflation rate's going down in Canada. And we all know, like the price of a box of small cereal at $9.86. Yes, I mean, I look at the price of, say, like a bottle of maple syrup in this country, in Ontario, has gone up about $5 or $6 in the last year. And this is just, we all know we're dealing with these prices. We all know what's really going on. And we all know that the numbers are being cooked. And the Liberals are lying about this. They are telling you, I think, what exists in their private universe. Anyway, thanks for watching today. I will be back with another episode of Stand on Guard tomorrow. I've got a very good interview planned with somebody who is going to be talking about how the government deliberately lied about the unvaccinated being the cause of COVID persistence in Canada. They lied about that. and the study that was conducted to prove it was based on bad science, false science. So I'm going to be looking at that tomorrow in a broadcast. Thanks for watching today. And I know it's painful to watch Question Period sometimes, but you got to keep watching it because these guys are after our skins. They're after our lives. They're after our free speech. And we got to keep tabs on them because the more we fight, the more educated we are, the more we know about what they're trying to do, the more we can stymie their attempts to do that. So thanks for watching today. God bless you all. I'll be back again tomorrow.